Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Immersive Podcast. It's your host, Tyler, and I am here with Carlie Wall. She is the host of Consciousness with Carlie. It's an up-and-coming podcast, and she is a one-on-one, she's a consciousness coach, and we'll let her talk a little bit more about what she does and what that is, especially in her own terms. How are you doing today, Carlie? Nice to see you.
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me.
Very good to have you. Always really good to see you. Good to talk with you. Mix energies. You in Florida today? Yeah?
I'm in Jacksonville.
Excellent. Yes. Two Floridians having a conversation on camera. Right on. Tampa to Jacksonville. I love Jacksonville. I was actually thinking about going, maybe I should go spend the weekend at Jack's Beach. It's kind of fun up there. I like it. I went to college there. So, Carlie, thanks for being with us today, and everybody else, thanks to you. I just want to shout out real quick the affiliate sponsors: Galactic Federation of Life, GFL Clothing, links in the bio, Clothing for Lightworkers, Dotan and Tavel, shout out to you. I love you guys. You're amazing. Really great clothing, responsibly sourced. Use the code Tyler33, and you can get a free hat. They make hats. They've got some cool ones besides just the logo there. And a huge shout out to Gaia TV. We have recently become affiliated with them, so very honored, very happy to say that. Thank you, Gaia. And also Unified TV, and it's okay. They're both wonderful networks. I watch both for different reasons. The link to the Unified free trial is in the bio, and if you get the discounted yearly subscription, what's kind of cool, you get access to all the live events they do for free. So just shout out to those who support us. And with that, let's dive into Consciousness with Carlie on the Immersive Podcast. Carlie, tell me about how'd you start the Consciousness with Carlie podcast? What made you dive into the podcasting world?
Okay, so I started my Consciousness with Carlie Instagram page and on my other platforms about 3 years ago, maybe a little more. When I started it, it was because it was my time to speak, and I was terrified. And it was right after the global pandemic, and I wasn't quite sure how we were supposed to change the world. And I kept looking into other videos and people speaking, and I'm thinking, what do we do? What do we do? And then I realized, oh, I got to focus on me, because if I focus on my frequency, that's what I do, right? I can focus on that and then help other people focus on theirs, and then together, that's how we do this. Now, when I realized that, I started diving into just listening to a lot of other people for a while, and I actually started listening to The Way of Mastery. It's a beautiful channeled book. There is The Wisdom of the Ages on YouTube. He narrates it for free. You can go listen to it. But as I was listening to that book one night, he said this term. He said, the orgasmic love of God. And when it said that, it activated a frequency in me. And I just started vibrating so fast off the bed, and I had tears coming out of my eyes because my heart had just activated open into a love that I hadn't experienced before. So go ahead.
Almost like a Kundalini rising kind of awakening, just with the word association there.
And I mean, before that happened, I was spiritually awakened, but I wasn't conscious of it. I just knew there was something more than whatever this was. And as that went on, I was in an extremely enlightened state, the most enlightened state I've ever experienced. I was just beaming with love, and everywhere I went, people were running to open the doors for me. Like when I looked like crap that day, right? It had nothing to do with that. They were running to open the doors for me. They were complimenting me. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, they feel God. They feel the love of God. Like that's the only reason why they would be magnetizing to me. And from there, I realized, okay, it's my time. Instead of me listening to other people, it's my time, and it's going to be a lone journey. And so I started my Instagram. I did my first Instagram live in December And I remember it was right before the like December 21st, and I did a sound bowl clearing meditation, and it was so intense, and I was so scared, and my heart was pounding out of my chest just being live, you know, and not knowing anyone, and just
Right.
knowing that I had to start somewhere. And so what I did is I just did everything that scared me, and when it scared me, I just did it anyways, and I put myself out there, and I realized just do it, perfect it later. Just do it, perfect it later. And as I went, I just got better and better and better at connecting with people, being able to do lives. I met so many amazing people around the world that I was doing shows with. And I realized how much it was teaching me more about myself, you know, as a human and my higher self. And, you know, there's been times throughout the last 3 years where we have to recognize that we're constantly evolving, you know? And so there's times where, like last year, I kind of fell off. I really wasn't on Instagram at all because I had to evolve. I can't be a true mirror to people if there's things that I'm still evolving through. And so I had to take that time away. And so when I came back, it was a full life force energy of this is what I'm doing because this is what I choose, because this is what I want. I want to serve, I want to create, I want to connect. And so this is what it was meant for me. And there's a reason why I created the foundation. Thank God I did. Because if I had to do all of that right now, I'd probably be like, I'm good.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work. Like when you say it like that, like if I had to do all that over again, if I had to build that foundation of everything
Right.
again, I don't know if I would. It's just a funny little tidbit. It's
I think it really comes down to the confidence. Like it takes so
that's a good.
long to gain it. Like to gain confidence, it takes time. You got to work with yourself. You have to fail and fail and fail and
Yeah,
fail and keep learning from the failure, you know?
yeah, I agree, and we hear that taught. Like we hear that thought like preached often. You know, never learned anything from
Absolutely.
success. I learned it from a failure, etc. I've always kind of disagreed with that like dead on viewpoint of it because I have two things on that. Failures, the way we, you know, I think verbiage and the way that we define words and everything, it's very impactful. And of course, that's a cliche even, but more in fact impactful than we really even think. You know, we say things like spending time or
Mm-hmm.
spending time. Like just every little phrase that we use has this little bit of inherent nudge towards the I don't know, the dissension, I guess, keeping
Yeah.
us into a low frequency, whether
Yeah.
it be very obvious or very, you know, subliminal.
I would say that failure, it's the best. It's because it's what's common. So people know that word, but it is a
Right.
spell. And if I was to switch that word into something new, I would say evolving. I would
Yes.
say evolving, 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 and it's a constant door. It's constantly moving, you know?
Yeah. It's an opportunity for transmutation, and
Hmm.
transmutation is only taking something that, you know, in the short, you know, zoom in, looks not so great, but is actually grand and amazing and gestalt for the bigger picture. The you know the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, but in that moment, you just can't see one plus one adding up to three. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't look at failures that way anymore. And I love the way you said that was just dive in and, you know, kind of learn the rest as you go along. It's very similar to how I kind of got into the role in the community that I am in now.
Hmm.
My story is actually very similar to the way that I started things. So that's really that's unique and amazing. It's like meeting another walker on the same path, so to speak. Cheers,
Yeah,
fellow traveler.
absolutely. And I believe that so many of us have had a lot of the same stages of awakening where we woke up to the matrix. A matrix is just a construct of structure. And
Of
so the
course,
matrix that we've created, that appears to be the matrix to us, we had
the
to wake
Matrix.
up to the frequency of it. We had to wake up to the consciousness of it, right? And recognize that it's just unaware of itself. And so what's happening is that it's just crumbling in on itself because there's more darkness than there is light. So we had to bring in more light through consciousness, through certain energetic souls, if you will, into this experience to bring more light and balance that out. But the contrast is always there. You know, it depending on how deep or the depths of the contrast is different, but there's always contrast, because without the contrast, there's not an experience. It's just light.
Too, of course.
Right.
There's just light. I mean, which, it sounds great, but hard to notice the light if there isn't. I love when I open a door and in the night and I crack a closet door or a bathroom door and there's light in it, and you see how much light just seeps through into like a hallway, a dark hallway, when you just so much as crack a door open. It's very metaphorical, but I notice it every single time I open a room that's dark, contrast it to a light room. It's like, look at how much damn light pours into that next room. And the thought is like, there's the light in the current room. It's not losing it. It's not missing it. There's plenty of light to go around. It's all good. And it's just like those little things that remind me, and I try to remind myself to keep myself in my highest frequency every day, is to remind myself of that contrast, but to be able to look at it with, neutrality, but I guess what we would call optimism. And I was for a very long time, like we've talked about, and like how you'll probably get into here in a minute, but, awakening and ascension and my spiritual awakening and my opening to exploration of consciousess at first wasn't always marked by light, love, and magic. I mean, a lot of it was anger and unprogramming and becoming pissed off at systems and things like that. So it was definitely a process for me, at least, getting to a point of like sitting there and saying, yeah, everything's light and all that stuff, and being, the cliches that we say. Tell me a little bit about, or tell me a lot about, if you want, your, that time when you kind of had that awakening. I guess you touched on during the, the lockdowns and everything during that time. What were you doing before you had decided to hop on, social, and you felt like it was your time to speak? What were you doing?
I was loathing and self-depression and was extremely anxious, depressed, addicted to alcohol, because there was this constant hole in my chest and I just couldn't fill it up, and it didn't matter what I did. And for me, it wasn't like I had to wake up and drink every day. It was that when I drank, I couldn't stop because it wasn't enough to fill it up. And so I'd end up in situations that have nearly killed me and multiple other people, right? And so I had to recognize what I was doing. And I actually had figured out with the alcoholism was that at 4 p.m. every day, I would crave beer, right? And so I thought it was because I was craving alcohol, but really what was happening is that my blood sugar was dropping because that's when I would drink.
Craving sugar.
Yeah,
something they tell you in the recovery circles, have some candy.
Yep. So I started eating at 4 o'clock every day, and it completely changed my mood and everything. Now, it was a long process it was like a good year and a half of, kicking and screaming about the fact that I couldn't drink and all of these things. So now where I'm at when it comes to alcohol, though, is that I had to change my relationship with everything. I can have a drink now, but it doesn't affect me the way it did before. It used to pull out emotion, and anything can be a medicine until it's a poison. And it used to be able to pull out the emotion and the stuck energy. And now that I don't have that anymore, it doesn't do that, right? So it's a different relationship than it used to be. I don't have to drink, but if I do, I'm saying that for anybody that maybe feels like, oh, we're not supposed to do certain things because we're enlightened or spiritual. Like, no, have a human experience. Just recognize when it's a poison. Recognize when it's a medicine. Recognize when it's an experience or when it's distracting you, right?
Very, very well said. Because, that's kind of the position that I'm into. I live a rather... Well, my lifestyle is rather atypical, but a lot of things about it are very normal, American, very, first world, high-tech, sophisticated, upper middle class, whatever the hell you want to call it. There's a lot of parts of my life that are very much like keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. Little silly comforts. but they're not there because I'm trying to keep up with the Joneses or I really need those things. I'm well aware of what I have that I don't need, and I'm well aware of what that I'm always aware that I have more than I need, and I'm blessed. I mean, I'm well aware of that.
Absolutely.
I hate it when people use these comparisons because I don't think people should compare pain, but I can't help but think like I don't have to I'm not a guy waking up in the Congo going to like mine cobalt. Like I just feel guilty like complaining about my life if honestly I've got things going pretty well for myself right now. And I don't say that to brag. I say that to remind myself that don't do that. Don't go dark. Be light. Be
Yeah, you
light.
have to choose it. You have to constantly choose
You
it because
have to.
we are addicted to distraction. The
Absolutely.
human mind is addicted to distraction because without that, we would just be whole within self at all times and there would be no contrast.
And
So we're
there's
constantly addicted to a distraction. The mastery is being able to pull yourself back so you can stay at least at a baseline of neutrality as much as possible so your experience isn't the pendulum swung way over here all the time,
of course
right?
it's
If it can
very
be right here, then it's much
extreme.
better.
Yeah, balance is great. And it's funny me saying that because I'm often quoted saying, you see a lot of from the edge, a lot more from the edge and me from the center. That's always how I've lived my life. But that's why I have life experience and stories to tell. But those were just rolls of the dice that happened. I happen to get lucky. A lot of the things that I've done by living on the edge, not the center, are things that would get somebody killed. The laws of probability is just not things that I can recommend people do for the life experience. I just could not do that in good conscience. That being said, certain things, I love what you said. Have a human experience. There are phases to these things, and not everybody is the same. So, of course, there is definitely something that's starting to emerge as a very clear cut spiritual community, the starseed community, the disclosure communities, and then there's that kind of Venn diagram there of where along that spectrum you are, or if you're still kind of in that conspiracy theory, just more in the real world disclosure conspiracy kind of side of things, which from my conversations with many people and my own personal experience, the dark night of the soul, the typical spiritual awakening is usually in the form of anger first, that 3D stuff first, recognition of systems, recognition of programming. For me, it was a recognition of shit. That's not me. I'm not myself. And I thought I was, and there's all this stuff on me. That's not me. I got to get it off. That's what that was. But have a human experience. You can't just make yourself a vegan who, doesn't use electronics and is, draped in crystals and sits and meditates for 8 hours a day and levitates at night and whatever. Just perform whatever the gifts that you've heard about, the things you've seen, the extremes. The extremes are real. But it's okay to be a human too. It's okay if you went out with your friends and had a beer the other night, but you're also going through a spiritual awakening. And I'm glad you said that, Carlie, because I do think the most important person that might come across these episodes is somebody who's going through that dark night of the soul and, having that little bit of identity crisis. And I don't think there are any inherently wrong choices at the beginning. If your eyes are starting to open, you're starting to see through the veil, don't get hung up on the having one drink thing. That will sort itself out later.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've been feeling this a lot lately where I've recognized how much of being a prisoner, truly a prisoner, and I could go into that story, but not like in prison, but close. How much that taught me how to find neutrality and peace without any freedom in any way and not being able to speak at all, because if you spoke you were crazy. And so I've been thinking about this prisoner aspect lately and how the contrast of being a prisoner, that's one side of the pendulum. And if you can experience being a full-blown prisoner to whatever it is, it could be your own mind, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be facilities, mental facilities, jail, whatever it is, when you liberate from that, the inertia has to swing directly to the other side of that contrast. So
That's
when
true.
it swings to the other side, you get to experience that liberation, but you
Cause and
can only
effect.
experience as much liberation as much imprisonment you've experienced, right? And so for
Yeah.
me, at a young age, when I was 12, I started becoming a touring studio artist at a really young age. And I have albums. I have albums from that age. They're on iTunes now. It's just Carlie Wall, but you can hear my music and what I was writing at the time because
So
I
your music's
wrote.
out there as Carlie Wall? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's
Okay.
from when I was
Sorry to
younger.
interrupt. I just wanted to make
Mm-hmm.
sure I had that clear. Because, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
So you can
curious.
hear a lot of my stories and things that I was experiencing at that time, but I was a touring studio artist. I also had to finish school, and what happened was is I was also a part of a dance team, and the entire team got mono from drinking out of each other's water bottles. And so
Mm.
I was bedridden for 2 years,
Yeah,
and
mono can be really
yeah,
intense, can't it?
but no
Yeah.
one knew. No one knew that I had mono. So they thought I was depressed.
Oh,
So they put me on a ton of medications, tons of medications, everything you can think of. And I was so zombied out that
psych
I was on
meds can be.
stage. Like I had to go perform and be on stage, but I was just like completely zombied out from all these meds for so long. And
It's
I
hard.
would just crack. I would just crack because my psyche couldn't take it anymore. And so what would happen is I would go on tour, I'd come home, I'd crack, I'd get placed in a mental hospital. I'd get out, I'd go on tour, I'd crack, I'd get placed in a mental hospital. So I was constantly inside of these confines of imprisonment. And then eventually I ended up in a year-long boarding school um, where I was a prisoner there. You know, you're not allowed to do anything.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of another form of an institution or yeah, a boarding
yeah, it's like
school,
a
like
mental
for
institution.
corrective behavior,
Yeah,
to correct your
exactly.
behavior or whatever. Prison.
Exactly. So when I got
I
out of
understand.
that, I was only like 17 when I got out of that. And I needed to get off of the medications, but I didn't know how. So I
Right.
went missing and I was homeless for quite a while. And I withdrawed off of 13 different psych medications cold
Yeah,
turkey.
it's
And
hard
so what it
to
did is it fried my brain so I couldn't write. I had no memory. Even now to this day, I don't have much memory of my touring life. Like my grandpa tells me a lot of things that I've
Oh yeah.
won and things I've done, but I don't remember it. So I had to heal that, right? And when I healed that, I was still only 17. I'm the first person in St. George, Utah, well, I'm the last person in St. George, Utah to ever get emancipated from their parents. I took my mom to court. I
Oh,
got emancipated from my parents when I was 17 because I didn't want them picking me up and putting me in a facility. So I had to work from the time I was 15 to 17 with the courts to get me emancipated from my parents so I could be free. So it was like
that's
I was working on this court thing. I was in the confines of this mental long-term boarding thing. I lost my career. I lost everything, you know, and it was completely out of my control, but it wasn't. With a higher perspective, it wasn't. I purposefully went through that experience for a reason. And when I got out of that, I tried to do music again. I came out to Florida at 20 years old and I was working with, some big name managers out here. And I found out that they were trying to sell me into trafficking, right? So they were trying to do that. And that's when I woke up to the Matrix. And that's
yep.
when I realized that everything that I thought that I wanted as a musician wasn't what I wanted. So that's how I woke up to the Matrix. And then after that, my dad, he was an addict my whole life, but he had done a like intentional overdose suicide, and so he had died. And then my
Sorry to hear that.
uncle had died. Well, it's all part of the
Condolences.
experience, but thank you. My uncle had died at the
Still
same time.
condolences.
So this is my consciousness arm, and I realized that every
This
time
is
I
this
had,
is my mom arm. This is all going to
yeah,
be mom.
yeah, I realized that every time now. at 28, I realized every time I had an awakening, I got a tattoo. But I didn't realize that that's what was happening. And now I have a whole story on my arm to remind
Right.
me of what I've been through and why. And after they died, I was like, I just felt like, how can I communicate? How can I communicate? And so I started using the Ouija board. And when I
Okay.
started using the Ouija board with my sister, it was tripping us out because we were scared. We were full of fear. We thought it was something outside of us.
Something
So
evil,
we would
something dangerous, maybe. But
you would think, but if you are it all and you're creating it all, it depends on what you're channeling. So we were channeling, but
if
we
you're
didn't
in a high
realize it.
enough frequency, I don't think that negative entities or negative energy has the ability to come in and latch onto you and steer a situation that way.
You
If
have
you
to
are
agree to
in,
it.
if you are exactly, if you are
Yeah,
in that state of,
right.
absolute pure freaking authentic love frequency,
Mm-hmm.
sorry guy, it's just not happening.
I wasn't, even at that time, I wasn't necessarily in that frequency. I didn't even know what that was, you know? So it's
Well,
like
you
I
don't
was
have to
just trying
know.
to communicate. And then the communication was so real, and the proof. Truth is proof. When you
Yes, I agree.
experience proof, it becomes your truth.
Absolutely.
And that's what I was experiencing through that. And then as I evolved, I realized I was talking to my dad through the board, and he told me, Carlie, this is exhausting. This is exhausting. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Because I'm taking energy that I'm channeling, because I didn't know I was channeling. And I'm making it work harder through me, through my hands, into something that I think is giving me an answer, when the whole time it was just me connected. It was just
Yeah.
me connected. And then I was like, I don't need the board. So I got rid of the board, and I was like, I don't need the board. And
The
it still was
board's
a little
just a
iffy.
tool.
Right. I was still a little iffy because I was like, well, I need more proof. I need more proof. Right. And I remember one day I was in
You do.
Walmart, and I was like, Dad, are you here with me, in my head? And I turned down the aisle, and every single plate and fork and plastic spoon and everything on that aisle was labeled every day. So when I asked him, are you here
Yes.
with me? I turned, and it was like, every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. And I was like,
That's awesome.
and
That's
the
a cool.
experience, it was the experience, right? Where it's like my soul left my body because it was so
Right.
profound.
Yeah, it's not like the story that you just told in and of itself. Yes, of course, it's cool. It's cool. It's awesome. It's a cool story. It's
Mhm.
entertaining. At bare minimum, somebody could could be like a downer and just at bare minimum could say, well, that's just a coincidence. And it's the worst thing
Exactly.
you could say about it.
Mm,
But I love that you're touching on that because that's something that I notice often. And it's kind of like that phrase, you had to be there. Like,
You have to experience it. We can talk all day long. It doesn't matter. If you don't experience it yourself, it's not truth to you. The only reason why I have people on my page is because they've experienced a truth that resonates with mine, right? It's not all the same, but there's an energy there that
of
feels
course,
connected, and it feels like love, and it feels like guidance, and it feels real, and it feels more real than all of the distractions and all of the stuff that tears you down every day, right? It feels more real than that.
absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I agree with you there 100% and very, very, very well said. Touched on a lot there, Carlie. That's some heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You've been through a
I
lot of
mean, it,
things. But the way that you look at things, and it
yeah,
seems, is you
it's,
seem to be in a place where you're looking at things from the. Yeah, I had a conversation with Emilio Ortiz the other day. He's a host of Just Tap In podcast. They're really doing very well. If got a lot of people that watch that show.
mhm.
But he and I were talking about the concept of people being reflections of ourselves, other people that we meet and experience, have experiences with that do things to us or whatever. I'm trying to use different verbiage than typical, but those are, we've heard that argument, of course, that souls are just other reflections, different versions of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of just had this little thought when you were speaking just now, like it's almost too much to go around and just, it's almost like negligent dissension to go around and have experiences, like to just go around and see nothing but mirror, 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 mirror. Like if you're not ever seeing the mirror that like you really need to see, and you're not actually placing meaning and emphasis and being open, third eye open, whatever you want to call it, to experiences and stuff, and just kind of running around without a, I guess there's there's the trust fall with but with intention, and then there's also just like reckless ridiculousness, and they could sound very similar, but I think what you're saying, and I think I'm sure you understand, is it's kind of a weird tandem between it, where you get to the point of, it's a little bit of reckless ridiculousness where you're just kind of trusting things, but at the same time, it's not that you're just kind of trusting things. It's that you're trusting that you're following the signs. There are signs, there are synchronicities, that there is an inherent order in this chaos. And there are signs there for you to pay attention to, especially if you are intentfully looking for them.
Yeah.
It really isn't leaving your life up to so much chance as it sounds like, because you've got a guidebook. I don't know anybody who has like any kind of massive spiritual awakening or life change or anything like that who hasn't had some sort of deep crisis of the soul at some level or another. Some pains are worse than others. It doesn't really mean anything. I don't like to compare that stuff, but everybody I think who is quote unquote awakened got to have a little bit of a pain to pleasure story, a pain to purpose story. There just has to be. And again, there's a redefinition of pain, and we've touched on that before. But I want to ask you a little bit more about, like Carlie Wall, and of course we'll naturally fly into consciousness and things like that. So you were in the music industry really, really quite young. That's kind of something pretty crazy, and it's cool to me because I just hearing your story, we have a lot in common. I a lot of similar experiences as you. Music industry pretty young, pretty much achieved what I thought was going to be my dream, but in short, I kind of found out that there was a massive freaking fine print, or like a caveat, a big but that came with the dream that I was offered that I had to say no to. And it was like, shit, so I got to start over in life. And I was very lost, at that time. That was completely my life. And I imagine that was yours too, going through tours and recording studios all the time, and that being what you were doing. That was my life. So when I wasn't doing that anymore and it just stopped, I felt weird. I felt lost. And substances and, alcohol and substances are all very accepted in that world. I don't mean to say that it's a requirement or pushed upon people, but I mean, it certainly wasn't discouraged. It was fine. Sure. And when I left that world, that was all that was left about it for me, and there was no more shows to play. I could go and play a cover show or something like that, but people have heard a little bit of my story where I got to a spot where I was going to sign with a really big band and kind of stick to one team instead of just being a floating session guitar player. I didn't say yes to that deal, and I did not continue doing any kind of recording or touring work in the form that I once had. I mean, I still play music, but that was effectively the end of my actual major label recording career. Saying no to the very next level. I mean, when you say no, there's 100 other people that want to say yes. The only thing left was substances, alcohol, and substances. And I say substances because I can't list them all. There's too many. But it was just a way to escape. It was just a way for me to escape. And I always saw it as, consciousness exploration. And I'm seeing more from the edge. I'm experimenting. I'm exploring my own consciousness. So it was so misguided back then, which is funny now because, of course, I do partake in things like the occasional plant medicine ceremony, etc.
Mm-hmm.
People know that I use cannabis occasionally, medicinally. I wouldn't say like, I'm totally for cannabis use. I have no problem with it as long as, it's for you and you're an adult and it's not going to make you insane. It's not up to me. I use cannabis. The things that I use now and the reasons that I use them are not to escape at all. That's not what they're for. I just don't do that. It's not an escape thing. I loved what you said there because that's a stigma too. I mean, alcoholism and addiction and those things, those are rampant in our culture today. They're also rampant among artists and rampant among those who, I mean, the empaths, the feelers, the dreamers, the seers. Along with that comes the susceptibility to, finding something that numbs or dulls down those crazy ass feelings, and you get caught up. I struggle with that personally, getting clean and sober, and then saying, I'm clean. I got clean a certain amount of time ago, etc. I haven't used like drugs in a very long time. But then, people would say things to me like, but you still, you've used cannabis, or you talked about going on that retreat and you did, like the Mama Aya ceremony or whatever. I've done those. I'll have a cheers of champagne at a wedding if I so choose. I mean, I don't really have any rules on my recovery.
The substances aren't the problem. I could be easily just as addicted to water and it could kill me.
Absolutely.
It's not the substances, it's the ideas, it's the lack, and needing to consistently fill up on something. People are addicted to their phones, they're addicted to porn, they're addicted to chasing relationships, they're addicted to codependency. It doesn't matter what it is. When you end that program within you, because like a computer, we have software and it's full of programs that aren't ours, and we're reprogramming it to meet what we want to experience instead of what others have implanted into our software system, right? And so it's like, as you change your relationship with the world, with yourself, now you can experience being a human and not take it to a level that will be detrimental to yourself or somebody else, because you're not lacking anymore. You're just whole. You can just have an experience.
You can just have the experience. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's very dualistic and because we hear things like the root word of alcohol and where it comes from in like Arabic and stuff, and they talk about it being the naturally just absolutely being the neutral frequency, lower of frequencies, the just like the universal poison. I mean, it gets that kind of rap, which it's super dualistic. It's like the perfect example of like, see, things are not black and white at all. Like that's not how things are. Alcohol, like I've seen, one example I saw was a channeler, a shaman, a woman who I really respected. But she actually, I once saw her end a ceremony where she was doing channeling by taking a shot of alcohol. And it was a part of the ceremony. And I've heard somebody else tell me that they've seen this too. But the point was it was like a gesture to disconnect from spirit. Now, of course, that implies that alcohol, when you get blackout drunk, I've heard it said that blackout drunk is really, you're bringing yourself down to such a low frequency that literally demons can come in. Malevolent souls have the ability to come in and act in your favor because you're not there to shut it down. And that's not something that I can say is true or false with certainty. I've not been revealed that truth. But moderation, duality. I mean, if you're not going to that point where you're allowing yourself to be taken over and do horrible things for yourself and others, which I think is what you're speaking. I used to be like that. I used to drink in excess and think it was fine. I'm allowed to do this. It's accepted in my industry. It's okay. It makes me less nervous on stage. Same thing.
Yeah. So
Dangerous.
To me, alcohol, this is my perspective, everything has a frequency. It's either going to ground you or it's going to lift you. It's not good or bad until you go too far out or too far down. So for me, if I was to drink a beer, so say I have I'm a channel, I'm an oracle channel. So my heights can be really, really, really high and I can't come back down. So that's why she would have taken that shot, because it's so grounding that the second you take
Yeah.
it, you can ground back down and it makes you present, not drunk,
Hmm.
not in the depths, present,
Right.
because you're too far out here and you need to come back to presence. So there's different medicines for that ground you or make you like high up in the ethers. Like it's just knowing and becoming aware of that, and that's what we're doing. We're just becoming aware that everything is a frequency, and
Yeah.
it's meant for certain things. And if you ground too hard, you're going down, your roots are going deep, 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 deep down, and that's darkness, that's contrasted darkness if you take it too far. Now if you're going too high and you're going too high, 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 high up, you get lost, dude. I've been there. I get lost, I get stuck. I've been stuck in the 29th dimension,
Yeah.
stuck, and I
That
couldn't come back down.
hence the term grounding, right?
Yeah, and it's just as bad. It's not like it's scary. It's just like, "Oh my God, guess what? I'm not here. I'm not here." So
Right. Not present.
that's what I had to learn as a channel, and even recently as an angelic channel, which completely changed my life because I was in angelic frequency. I'm able to tap into that. But what happens is it's really hard to bring that here, right? So you have to learn how to bring that here, and you have to learn how to bring the depths here. And that's what I do as a coach. I help people see the depths, and then when they're neutral, they can see the heights, or some already are in the heights. And we just bring it all back here so we can use both. Because if you can't bring it here, it serves no purpose. And that's why I had to be imprisoned and go through what I went through so I could bring it here, and then go to angelic heights so I could bring it here. But if I'm stuck in one or the other, I'm still not here. The consciousness
Absolutely.
is in a different space.
Absolutely. Very well said. Very beautiful. And and I think it's great that you have, decided to turn what your experiences are and what you have gone through and one could argue what your soul decided for you in this lifetime in this meat suit we call Carlie. But I
Yeah.
think the point is to just be as open as possible to what that mission is. We call it tween life and amnesia. You're not supposed to remember before, etc. That past life. You just remember Carlie in the meat suit, Carlie. But you're
Yeah.
open, and
And
that's what matters.
yeah, and I'm so open because it's relatable. When people work with me, they work with me because I said something that related to them. They felt it. They felt connected. They felt heard, seen, and known because of my
Yeah.
story. And that's what we want. We want to be heard, seen, and known, right? And so when we can find other people that can see us, we don't feel so alone. And it's confirmation, it's proof of our expression of truth when you have other people that have that. But it can be in multiple different arenas. If people are, in the addiction phase and they have a lot of addicts in their life, their proof is that is their reality. So they
The,
all come together,
the internal has manifested into an
Right.
external reality, and we think it's logic and reason. Well, of course, I'm an addict. My friends are addicts. Like, it's a little deeper than that. Yeah.
Sure, but your belief system of it as well has to reflect back to you your belief system because you're the creator of it.
100%. Absolutely. Yes. I don't believe they say an object has to go, or a state of matter, it has to go back to its natural state. It's never going to stay out of natural state. Um, that's very akin to that. I mean, we're not going to stay in a state that's in that stress that long,
Right.
metaphorically speaking. I think something either has to break or pressure has to release in the other direction where things might actually be able to get better.
Right.
Metaphorically speaking, that would be that stick not breaking, but just bending back into a regular strong stick that never broke.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's tough to get to the level of discernment where you're not just angry at things, but I think, and we've touched on this a few times, is neutrality, definition, things like that.
Right.
So you said that and I'm just repeating this, for the listener, of course. You said an angelic oracle, etc. Your one-on-one coaching. I'm curious, so how do you typically start with a client? who are your typical clients? How do you usually start? Like, what's it kind of
I
like working with you?
I have clients of all ranges of consciousness.
Of
I have
course.
people that are just barely coming into it. I have people who are coming into it and they're dealing with narcissism and they don't know why. I have people who are angels themselves and have found me. They hold an angelic frequency. It's a label. Angelic frequency is a label, but it's an energy. So there's people that hold that, and I work with them as well to help coach them into doing Instagram and being a one-on-one coach. So I help lead the leaders. I help lead people that are in student phase so they can be the leaders.
Yeah.
It's a broad range, but basically I have them video chat. We video chat. It's $60 for an hour. And I ask them consent to be their mirror, because that's them speaking into existence that they allow me to mirror back to them. And then I asked them why they wanted this session. And based off of what they wanted this session for is what I start channeling. So when I'm channeling, what I'm saying is I take Carlie out of it and I allow the highest frequency to come through me for them. And when I do that, it brings higher perspective. It's an angle. It's another angle of perspective for them, right? And then after we have our session, I write them a full report. I have all the reprogramming of the subconscious mind. So we work with journaling, I am affirmations, meditations. I said, you don't have to be consciously listening to this right here. Just turn it on, because it's reprogramming your mind, and it's going to help you through the future for those programs to dismantle and for new ones to come in. So we work on reprogramming the subconscious, and then I send them a full audio recording of their session as well, so they can go back and listen to it. So I do a
Great.
lot. Like, I do a lot of things. It's not
Yeah.
just $60 for an hour. It takes me about 2 hours for your full session. I'm only with you for an hour.
I was going
Yeah.
to say, actually, that is quite a lot. I mean, that's actually a good, I mean, people who are listening to this, I hope I'm assuming have at least seen a little bit of what one-on-one sessions with healers and coaches and things of that
Yeah.
nature
Yeah.
generally are and what they include.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that's Carlie's doing a lot for these folks, because of course, yes, you can do it in the group setting, but that being said, you have to do the one-on-one kind of assessment kind of things and everything like that. But
Yeah.
the way you go about it is I think you're packing a lot in, but not too much. It seems like a really cool concept. What you're doing for people is that idea of community. Is you're their mirror, but they know that there are others there too. There's a collective intent every time you all get together, however often that is, whatever you guys are doing. Whenever they rewatch that video, they're re-tapping into that collective intent that they experienced that first time.
Yeah.
Or
And,
not even
the
re-tapping, they're
main thing
building.
about it, Tyler, is I've realized, throughout my whole life and through connecting with people, people really truly just want to be seen and heard and known. So I give everyone the opportunity to fully be seen. And then when they are seen and heard by me and known by me, then I can bring them a different perspective to help them out of the loop that they're in. So that's all I'm really doing, is I'm truly listening and seeing someone and then going, okay, now let's look at the narcissism and see what it's teaching you. Because I've been there. I've been in very abusive relationships, extreme satanic relationships, okay? Because of that experience, I'm able to help people out of it, because I had to know how to do it, right? And I just needed someone to hear me and give me another perspective that isn't, you're wrong, you need to get out. It's not about that. I'm saying, look at what it's showing you. Where do you not have boundaries? Where are you letting people walk all over you, right? Where are you dishonoring yourself? And you can see it in the way that you agree to let people treat you.
Yeah, that's and that's a part of the verbiage and the mindset switch is like, oh, I'm agreeing to let people treat me that way, not
Right.
I'm being treated this way. Why? Like, everybody treats me this way. That's the big shift. But there's a lot of big shifts like that you can make. I mean, there's a million of those little tidbits that happen,
Yeah.
and you just realize more and more, wow, I was really programmed. Because you're reading all these little attachments, and damn, it's beautiful when you start to really start to see yourself. Like, that's how it was for me anyway. I had this idea of who self was, who Tyler was, and I'm still Tyler, but damn, like there's so much about me that I actually love. I think is beautiful. I think, and not just by myself, but it's beautiful because it's something that's shared with somebody else. Like it's just innately beautiful, unique, whatever.
Mhm.
I love myself from a
Mhm.
third party neutral perspective these
Yeah.
days,
Yeah.
but not because like, you know, the typical reasons people would love themselves, but also just because I'm happy to see myself. And so I'm not critiquing anybody, but I think a lot of us in circa 2024 right now, I don't think we're seeing a ton of quote unquote self with a capital S if you walked out into downtown Los Angeles or downtown Tampa or
Absolutely.
whatever. You're
Mhm.
seeing a lot of costume, a lot of, uh, you know, it's not an addiction. I got a prescription. There's masks in all forms, which I'm not judging. But the point I'm getting at is self, the raw, true
Yeah.
self. That,
There's
and I
just a
was,
deep disconnection to self.
Mhm.
And that's what we see, a deep disconnection to self. They're still connected. They just don't have any awareness of it, right? And then you cover it up with drugs and alcohol, and then it starts to affect your actual avatar. So your brain starts becoming damaged, right? And then your reality starts becoming this damaged reality in a sense because you became so disconnected, and it's very sad. And that's exactly why we do what we do, and this is exactly why we've chosen to stand up. And despite the pain and the loss and all the times that we wanted to die, right? And we're still here. Why? Because we're here to serve. We're here to serve. And we're here to learn how to serve by loving ourselves first. And I did a video on this today. I just posted it before we did this podcast, but it's about
I,
self-love.
I saw a little bit of it, but I was hopping on the podcast, so I didn't
Yeah,
watch it.
it's because I had a client the other day who was asking me, well, what is self-love? I go to yoga, I do this and all that. I said, honey, we don't know what self-love is. We only know what it is by contrast. We only know what it is by being given the opportunity to go, hey, I'm done being treated like this, so I think I'm going to choose to walk away this time. And when you do that, you step into courage for the first time, right? And you go, whoa, wow, I did that. I walked away. I've always bowed down. How did I walk away? That's empowering. I'm intrigued. And then every time you
Right.
get an opportunity, it shows you more about how to love yourself. We
Yeah,
don't know how to love ourselves. We have to be taught through contrast.
we
That's
don't.
all it is.
And we're taught not to love ourselves, I think, at least in the West, in America, where I was born and raised.
Mhm.
Of course, you're supposed to take care of yourself and have self-esteem, but let's be honest, it is not. Most people don't like people who are full of themselves or come off as. I mean, if you hear somebody say about somebody else in gossip, like he is so full of himself, he loves himself, like that inherently seems to have negative connotations in our culture. And it very well may, like given what some people are typically referring to, because it's not usually self that most individuals are probably in love with.
Mhm.
I'll use the example of maybe somebody who is very materially successful, has very nice cars, very nice houses, and all that stuff, but they're not happy. They know they're not happy, etc.
Mhm.
I mean, that's just a blanket, obvious, like blah, silly example, but it's just an obvious painting of a picture of perspective mattering, and I was like the material filling that hole with anything, but you can't fill the hole. It's filling the hole is almost backwards. It's to me, I keep getting back to it's stripping things off. It's taking things away. It's getting down to chiseling off all that stuff that was put on you since you were talking to your imaginary friends when you were 3,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
getting back to that kind of inner child that never was really programmed in the first place, but has the wisdom and the experience and the energy and the freaking just raw, visceral energy that can only come from a life lived on the edge, a life lived with massive contrast, massive swinging of that pendulum that you speak of, massive pain, and therefore those were lessons that they went through.
Mhm.
That, in tandem with getting back to that inner child mentality, is the perfect in my mind, the perfect place to be, and the perfect place to be if you're going to be, a consciousness coach. And I feel like you really embody that. So
Thank you.
bravo to you. That's really, really great.
I wanted to say something real quick before I forget about what you just said. You were talking about how when people walk around, like, oh, that he loves himself or whatever, and that's an ego thing. Um, I believe, and I know as my own truth, and through the people that I see, our telepathic abilities are coming online, right? And when you're telepathic, it means that you can feel people's energy, right? There's no words, you can feel authenticity. So when you're
Yes.
around somebody who truly loves God within their heart and loves the people and is here to serve, it doesn't matter if they have all the money in the world or not. You can see that they love themselves because it's an energy of authenticity and truth. And then when you see somebody who maybe has the same thing, like all the cars and the money and all that, you can feel when it's ego because it's not authentic. It's a
Right.
distracted cover up, like my ex. Okay. It's a distracted cover up. And when you talk about the inner child and the young child and talking to your imaginary friends, you can only talk to your imaginary friends through telepathy. And why do children not like strangers that don't have a good aura? Because they're telepathic. So
Yes.
we are becoming more telepathic as we embrace our inner child and we're able to see authenticity and if it's not.
100%.
And then it's easier to navigate who you want in your life because you can feel if they're real. You can feel if they're authentic, And that to me is what truth is, just authenticity.
Yes, it is. It's very, very well said. Very well said, Carlie. And yes, that's a huge theme in my life, and it's definitely, I guess, kind of a theme of this show is that is what. And I know it's kind of corny to say, what's unique about you? Well, we're super authentic. What does that
Yeah.
mean? It
Yeah.
really means what it means. Authenticity is something that, of course, we got a definition for it, but it's beyond that. It's a feeling, it's an energy, it's something that you know is there or you know is not there.
I think it's fully embracing your uniqueness,
Mm-hmm.
you
Absolutely.
know?
Just fully, and that's where I came up with like kind of, honestly, it was immersion pods that I was kind of thinking
Mm-hmm.
in the days of thinking like names and logos and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I think somebody has that name. But immersive, I thought that was cool because, like, to immerse myself in the magic around me, to the blessing of knowing Carlie Wall, and just to immerse myself in her magic, and also have the blessing of having her share her magic with other people in a room that I'm in. I mean, that's even just that right there is it drives me forward. It feels good.
Yeah.
And we say things, or I say personally, and I hear others say things like, "Oh yeah, I operate entirely on energy, feeling. I don't really make like logic decisions. I go with my gut, my energy, kind of thing." That is truly what I practice and what I preach. But I guess what I mean by that is it's it's what you were talking about. It's just being as authentic as possible that you can really just trust that all the fuzz and the bullshit and the programming and the this and the
Yeah.
that was once in the way, something that made it so my imaginary friends went away.
Mm.
It's almost like, wow, they could almost come back because
Yeah.
a lot of the interference is gone. A lot of what was, blocking telepathy and such is not in there anymore. Being authentic is just that much more easy if you don't have those attachments. And it turns out that people are very attracted to that because most people don't have it and they really want it. People really do want to get back to their true self, but it's
Yeah.
hard. It's a
People
process.
people want permission to be authentic. So when you're authentic, it gives them permission to be authentic. That's why me and you are such good friends and we can just talk because we give each other permission to just be ourselves
Yeah,
and that's it.
I agree 100%. There's definitely boxes people think they need to fit into and bash anybody's goals, but you do not need to fit into any box besides your box. You are
Yeah.
the most
Make your
unique
box how you like it. You
you.
want it big? You want it small? You want it a
Yeah,
triangle box? Maybe it's not square.
crazy
Maybe it's a
misshapen, but yeah, it
circle.
doesn't have to be a box. just yeah, like everybody, Carlie,
Yeah.
you, everybody out there, you're the only you. You're so
Yeah.
unique. It's
Yeah.
that,
We are
but
so unique.
I'm unique. But what's so unique about me? Like, God, how much time you got? Like, just man, oh my God, we are
And you know
all
what that
so
makes me think of, Tyler, is when I really let go, when I was 21 and I was crying in bed about my music career and why nothing was working, nothing was working. Finally, one night I said, "Who am I doing this for?" And I realized it wasn't for me. It was for my family because they wanted me to use my gift and I didn't want to let them down. I loved
right.
music, but not in the way it was going. So what happened was is I said, "I'm done." So I let it go completely. And then all these opportunities of new things that I was good at came in and I was like, "Oh, I'm a really good cook. Oh, I'm a really good, this and
Yeah,
that." And I didn't know because I was so attention is currency. And when it is so focused on what's not working for you, you can't see how many versions of you are
yeah.
out there that are good at all these different things. And now I can do music again in a new frequency, in a new way. But because I let it go, it opened me up to this opportunity to even be here with you right now. Right?
Happy we're sitting here right now together because when I think we were talking about this yesterday, completely off air, just a private conversation. But I think I was saying this to you, like it's weird. I've got way too many options,
Mm-hmm.
but like in a good way. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I could kind of like I was saying something to the effect to Carlie in a private conversation. Like I feel like I have a lot of options right now. Like I almost kind of caught myself complaining that like I could kind of pick whatever. Like a lot of people are stuck by circumstance, whether it be, children or, family obligations, career obligations, just social ties, whatever it is. A lot of people are really tethered to a certain life, to a certain place, to certain limitations, etc. I mean, I'm not completely free in every damn way. I'm not a billionaire or anything, but I've people have heard me talk about a lot of things have changed for me over the past in this past year, and now I'm really in a place where it's like I just have to look at the wow, this vast open canvas that now
Yeah.
exists,
Yeah.
and of course honor the painting that was. That's
Yeah.
fine,
Mm-hmm.
but to embrace and it's not even just one canvas. It's like there's 100 blank canvases that could potentially be painted. It's just
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. And while that could sound like, "What, aren't you lonely?" Like, that's not what I mean. It's just, it's that ability to see possibility is so beautiful. To see all those possibilities ahead of me and actually feel it like that
Mm-hmm.
is just so beautiful. And we all have that inside of us. We all have that inside of us. It's just we are so so taught and just pushed, and it's usually driven by money and the need to survive. And I'm not going to argue with anybody's saying, "Well, I got to pay rent. I have to eat. I have to this. I have to that." Of course,
Sure.
I can only say personally for myself that monetary gain, etc., the ability to support myself, which I don't see as like wealth or monetary gain. Like that's not how I see money anymore. I just see that there's a thing that you gotta pay for your way. You have to get through this world because that's how it's set up. Like I can't be Tyler for free. It doesn't work. I gotta eat.
Mm-hmm.
But I have found that literally my mindset completely dictates how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers don't matter. What you would expect doesn't matter. When I'm in the right headspace, when I'm truly in that high frequency state, and I usually relate it to the trust fall. When I take back 80% of that control, that's when that's when my cryptocurrency portfolio starts going weird, and I'll start making bad decisions. I'll I'll make a big, like an option. People know that I was involved in cryptocurrency very early. It's afforded me a little bit of freedom. That's a thing. Um, as soon as I start worrying about it or like checking the markets every day and things like that, like I used to when I was like day trading and trying to climb the ladder, that's when things go bad and the universe like kicks me in the face and says, Tyler, we're going to take 20% of your portfolio just to show you that you can't keep checking things and thinking you can control
Well,
them.
because you're telling the universe that you're lacking. I'm lacking. So it's like,
Exactly.
you're lacking, right? I have to do the
Exactly.
same thing. I'm like, okay, I have to make sure I don't think, like, accidentally, unconsciously fall into the lack program,
Yes.
right? And just lead with my heart. Like, keep saying this, pull your shoulders back and lead with your heart and let it show you how it can support you. That's energetic currency. It could be a rock, it could be a piece of paper. It doesn't matter. Your energetic currency is going to bring that in when you're authentic to what you truly want. And if you don't know what you want and you have a blank canvas, paint with a watercolor and try it and see if you
Yeah, try
like
it
it.
out.
If you don't, paint with oil base. See if you like it. If you don't, try something else. Become a sculptor, right? You just got to try because you don't
There's
know
so
what you
many
like.
media. Yeah,
We don't
there's
know
so
what we
many.
like until we try it.
Hell yeah. There's so many different ways to create out there.
So
Create a
many.
life,
It's
create art,
unlimited.
create movements, create relationships, create feelings, create energies, whatever.
Mhm.
Creation isn't just sitting down and painting or sitting down and writing a song. Creation is creation, baby. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's creation. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to see and say when you're in, like, to someone who's in the thick of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what to do. I have a bill due and I don't know how I'm going to pay it. I mean, it's hard to look that person in the eye and expect them to just understand the concept of, just imagine it being fine.
Something
It
that
won't work
I
out.
was taught by my man, because he was a galactic shaman and he was my mentor for years, and then he ended up becoming my partner because I rose in consciousness and we could meet each other there. But one thing that he would always tell me is, Carlie, you only need shelter, water, and some food. Everything else is a creation. It's you don't need it to survive, right? And we're so
Right.
stuck on, I have to pay rent or I can't survive, I'm going to die, I'm going to lose everything. If you come back to basics, go live in a tent. I'm sorry, but go live
Right.
in a tent. I've done it. Go live in a tent and go become one with the fact that you are okay, and not with the noise and the belief that you have to slave in order to have a roof over your head. You can do whatever you want to do. Don't let this world make you believe that you have to slave to have something. I bought an RV, live in it full time. It's beautiful, but
Yeah.
I don't have rent, right? I have my lot rent if I choose to be
If
on
you
a
choose to
lot,
park on a lot.
if I choose to, but I created it this way so I could have freedom. So sometimes we have to go to basics and hit a 0 point so we have a blank canvas. I've been there so many times, right? And you're just like bawling and suffering, like, why can't I do anything right? And blah, 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 blah. But it was all just trying to guide me to this place that I'm in within so I can use it as a life force energy, right?
Yeah.
Because without that, it's just siphoning from me. If I don't know this energy in me, it's just siphoning from me. And that's what I help people see as well. I help guide them to finding that. I can't give it to them, but I can guide you and help you with books that activated me. I am affirmation, subconscious reprogramming, and then you can have the experience for yourself.
That's very well said. And again, it's an honor to be sitting here and speaking with you about this because
Thank you.
you're a rising star in what you're doing. Some people, and again, not judging. I don't like to make like statements like this. Some people, most people, blah blah blah. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of people hop into things a little bit too early, or maybe they get in over their head. For anybody who's not here right now, which nobody is, this isn't a live stream. Your energy, Carlie, is very, very. I know that I'm a good antenna. I trust my damn antenna. I only make decisions based on, that just
Mm-hmm.
raw. It's almost like if I'm going to have an imaginary friend or not. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost on that level. Like, am I creating my colleagues, my whatever, the people that are in my life at all
Mm-hmm.
that I'm even going to speak to? I can feel the authenticity of you. I can feel the energy from you. I can tell in the way that you use the words that you use without a shadow of a doubt that truth is proof. Kind of thing. Like, I don't need proof. I don't need to see photos of the past, or I don't need to see like a sworn affidavit of anything. It's now easy for me to pick up on the energy that this person's authentic in their self. Oh, and they're also happen to be kind of close to the same radio station as I'm on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Authentic self is one thing, but then we're not all identical. We all have different roles and things in different tribes. So it's truly it's great to to know you now, because I see you getting having a great time and a great rising in this new earth, in this kind of field that's.
Yeah.
So again, I'll say it again, the spiritual community, we kind of, I hear that said a lot, and I feel like it sounds kind of corny, does it? But it is really becoming quite a big movement. Of course, the consciousness, spirituality, etc., are not going to be alternative things for very long. They're not even anymore. They're very mainstream in academia and things like that. This stuff is coming, people. It's coming. We're waking up. We're here. There's so much more of
Yeah.
us than there is of them.
There
Most
is, and
people don't even
as
know we have
you
the
rise
mask.
in, like, as everyone rises in consciousness, as we evolve every time, from my own personal experience, just recently, my biggest, activation I had like a month ago, I saw a whole nother dimension of reality once again. Okay. And it was a whole new, oh my God, who am I? Who am I now? Right? Who am I now? I have this new frequency. I don't know what to do with it, all of that. And I really had to just be gentle with the fact that we're always being reborn. There's always going to be another death of yourself. And then you're going to rebirth into another one. So no one has the answers for you. But there's people that have died and reborn and died and reborn and died and reborn that have been able to navigate it. So that way it can help people that are just barely coming into that and maybe have only been through a few steps of it. But it doesn't end. There is no destination. There's
That's right.
no destination, everybody. And I wanted to do a live on this today because the destination that everybody's trying to reach, even with New Earth and even with the Starseed community, and this is the perspective that I had seen, we're going into the I am it all 9D consciousness. When you recognize that you are it all. And this is when you're able to tap into superpowers, because you realize that you are the sun, you are the clouds, you are this, you are that. So that way you can create your world based off of that I am it all consciousness. But that's the infinity. So once you get to the 9D I am it all consciousness, there's nothing left. You go
Right.
back into the 0 point where it is, what am I? That's one dimension. What am I? And then from that, it builds itself up again all the way to 9D. And then we do it again. We're not going anywhere. Even if
Right.
a realm, even if we did have a huge solar flash and we boofed into another realm, there is no destination.
Right.
So
There is no
you didn't
end
arrive
point.
anywhere other than
Yeah,
within.
that's a really good point. That's a very good point. I mean, yeah, what is
It's,
the end point? How would you get in a time machine and press? I want to go to the end.
there is no
That's
end.
a
It's
bizarre
right
concept.
now. It's right now.
It's
Your
always
gift
now.
is right now. It's right now. And Allura, who I did a show with, activated me into this so hard. She's a walk-in situation, so a new soul was born through her. But
Yeah.
she talks about this and she says, Carlie, I traveled through all time and space. I have been through it all. And when I came back into my body, I knew and I realized that this is the safest dimension for me to be in, because my consciousness chose to experience it right now. My consciousness can leave and go through everything else, but it's choosing to be here right now. You are safe. It's when you believe that you're not safe that you are not, and the world has to show you that you're unsafe. So choose to be safe, choose to be protected, right? This is you, this is your consciousness.
Choose to
And
be
there's
safe.
no destination. So what does that mean? It's a gift. That means you can enlighten in the fact that, wait, I can be happy now. I can be joyful now. Sure, Carlie gets pissed off once in a while. You push the wrong button, right? But overall, I'm grateful for my experience. I'm grateful for the
Yeah.
emotions, being able to feel, and cry and get mad and laugh, play music, do this. Like, you
Yes.
guys, this is the gift. It's right now.
That's I remember even being not a child, but like an adolescent, and my answer to like what's the meaning of life was always to experience, to experience the good and the bad, which is I love because that was my answer as a a freaking 14-year-old who cocky little adolescent kid and thinks he knows everything, doesn't know anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I knew something because that really is the point of life. I still see that as the point of life is just simply to experience the good and the bad. You can go a little deeper with that on like what's good, what's bad, etc. But that's the point to experience. That's it. There is not an end. There's not. We say between life, amnesia, etc. There's no end, and that's
There's no end. So
that can seem bleak, but it's not.
and that's the dimensional perspective I was given a month ago, and it shifted my whole experience because I was like, oh my God, all of us as a community who are focused so much on the star seeds and the solar flare and all of that, all the solar flash, it's a beautiful thing. We created that and it brought us all together. But you guys,
Yes.
outside of that perspective, when you have a 5D and higher perspective, it's still distraction if you let it be. If you're waiting for something to change your life and it happens to be a flash or a channeling from somebody or the galactics are coming, you
Right.
just did what you got out of when you left religion, when
It's
you
the
left
same
politics,
thing.
when you left all that. We did it again. Okay, so now we have to evolve out of it and go, hey, I love this community, but guys, don't let it become a distraction, right? Like,
God, Carlie,
it's
that is
too
a
big.
hell of a statement there. That is something that needs to be said and more often than
I
it
know.
is.
I
I
have
mean,
been
like,
saying it.
holy shit. They heard you.
Thank you,
I
because
didn't know people were
Tyler,
listening.
it is so hard to say that because there's so many people that are completely immersed in the community and the belief that they're going somewhere, and it's beautiful, and we totally can be, guys. That's besides the point. We totally could be and have some beautiful shift happen for the world, but it's not right now. So if it's taking your attention, guess what that does? It siphons your energy and you feel exhausted. And you want to say, the solar flares are making me exhausted. The solar flares are making me exhausted. Of
It's
course they
just
are, because you're letting them. So they
because you
have to
believe it.
siphon your energy.
Yeah, it's just the energy today. And, I'm guilty of that. I feel a little weird today. And I'll say that to myself in my head. I feel a little weird today. Weird energy today. I'm not saying that to myself in a bad way. I'm just like making a
Yeah.
neutral
And
observation.
I am not saying that I have not been in that. I'm only stating that because I've been in it and I was so immersed in it,
Yeah.
where the solar flares dictated whether or not I was going to be living my truth.
Mm-hmm.
What? What? I might as well just go back to drinking, honestly,
Yes.
because it's the same
Yes.
thing.
You just said something that I guess for quite some time I've had a little bit of a difficult time articulating better than you just said it. Let's through the claps on there. I
Mhm.
mean, yes, I vehemently preach against labels and stories, not against them in the sense of stay away from them. They don't have any value. They're dangerous. Don't even just stay away. That's not what I mean. I love the way that you put it. These things, the star seed community that we've seen arise. I mean, I've said this before, but if you search the word star seed on Google in like 2016, I really got like 7 results.
Mhm.
Now you're getting the same amount of results as if you search the word cat. It's
Mhm.
just it's here. It's not going anywhere. Something
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And then some people go down the road of, like my personal catalysts for just what really broke the straws that broke the camel's back. And people say, what happened when you woke up and all that stuff. And I usually, I'll go into the story and such of what happened during that time. The things that really pushed me over the edge were seeing things as a result of success in business and, what I saw people doing. I started seeing things that, were a part of our tax code, being a part of a publicly traded company, knowing what fiduciary responsibility really means. Wow, it really is the law. The law in this country, fiduciary responsibility to investors is more important than responsibility to the health of your consumers. You are fine if you're a member of the board and you know that maybe you ran a test on a certain something and you found that there's a 60% chance that, of a bad outcome or whatever. Your projections say that 600,000 people are going to have a horrible experience. It might even be an end of life experience. I'm trying to tread lightly here. They don't have to disclose that. What is against the law is running that study with investors' money and not acting in the best interest of your investors. Mm-hmm. If you don't put out, and I use the example of Vioxx, Joe Rogan uses it all the time. This happened back in the 90s or so. I'm not going into the history of it, but that's been uncovered. So I can use that as the example. That's a case where a pharmaceutical company is responsible for doing all the testing on a medication, and the doctors and the clinicians and everybody, they have absolutely no access to that. They don't have access to those studies. They have access to the interpretations of the studies by the pharmaceutical companies. So a pharmaceutical company, in the case of Vioxx, could do 15 tests on something and 14 times find out that this is terrible. I know we invested $20 billion in it, but it's making people, they have heart attacks 5 years later or whatever, the case might be, which was with Vioxx. It's sorry, man, you're breaking the law, member of the board, vice president, head of sales, whatever you are, which was, the world I was living in. I know it's weird. I've lived way too many lives in this life, but living in that world, I found that, and I made that connection. I wasn't in the pharmaceutical industry, but yeah, fiduciary responsibility to investors was more important than actually saying, we found unequivocally that this is going to cause harm. It's going to hurt people. It's going to take people away. It's going to eliminate people. We need to find a way to make it look like it's not, so we can interpret it that way, because that's what's best for our investors. Mm-hmm. And not doing that was breaking the law. Mm-hmm. If I don't do what's in the best interest of the investors of the company that I'm on the board of, mm-hmm. even if it's amoral, even if it's I'm literally breaking the law of the country that I live in, that shit just hit me like a ton of bricks. And of course, thank God, I wasn't in the pharmaceutical industry, so I wasn't dealing with life and death. But still, that concept, mm-hmm. I couldn't participate in it anymore. I just could not. Right. And of course, the same thing kind of right along with, we were talking about the pharmaceutical industry anyway, so my mom had people have heard me say that she was diagnosed cancer right around the time of the lockdowns. And of course, we all saw and formed some opinions about big pharma then, but I was busy seeing inside of big cancer. And what I saw there was not pretty. It was not encouraging. It was very eye-opening. Mm-hmm. Now, knowing you, having conversations with people like you, now I look at those things and of course, there were horrible things. But I'm me now. I'm here now doing this. The Immersive podcast exists. Got a lot of great things coming up. I don't think we're going anywhere. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm only able to do this because that stuff happened. Because those things happened and put me through a dark enough experience, which was dualistic. Mm-hmm. And then, like we've talked about in private, people moving out of the way, things moving out of the way in your life, even if they're viewed as positives or at least neutrals, you can feel a loss.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You have to zoom out, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I was channeling last year, like, I don't know how you really explain that to somebody, because everybody has their own unique way of tapping into their higher self. But I had received some information, I guess is how I could put it, that as you evolve, there's always going to be a grieving process, always, right? And it is that death of self. But how I saw it was that when you come back to the whole of consciousness, the one, the I am it all, one consciousness, nothing else is separate from that. Nothing exists outside of it. So therefore, everything that you're experiencing right now, your pet, my cat, my family, my man, all of these things that are beautiful, amazing gifts, as you evolve and become more and more and more and more and more a part of source again, you lose it all because you never were separate from it in the first place,
You were
right?
all
You were
just you're
always it, but you grieve the experience of seeing yourself as a separate entity because it's a gift.
very well said. Very well said. Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I got like a lot when I was when I was young. I was 12. I got like a lot of books because my father passed. I was young, and people gave me books like grieving after loss and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have found those books to be so helpful, but not anything to do with losing a loved one. I mean, yeah, that's the verbiage they use, but I love how you said that because those books to me, just like a little fun fact, I got them. You read them when that stuff happens. I found reading those kind of books to me, it was really eye opening and enlightening because that's when I had that realization, and I was actually younger when I had that realization, but it was a part of that building block. It was something that's been subconsciously in me for a very long time. That death doesn't mean death. We grieve we grieve just like death over the death of situations, over the death of experiences, over the all the time, right now, now. That whole collective of right now is all gone. It's not anymore. It is, but it's not, you know what I mean? We're not doing that now again. We're doing this now.
Right.
You could always mourn the loss of an old now. That's really all it really is. You're just mourning that
Right.
old now. That's kind of how I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
There's another now in a series of a shitload of nows.
Yeah.
Carlie, I wanted to ask you, and of course, feel free to go as open or as closed as you want on this one. But of course, I mean, you've mentioned that you've had struggle with alcoholism and everything like that. And of course, I have too. Everybody knows that. I have had struggles with those things as well. And, that's kind of an interesting topic. We did touch on this earlier in the conversation with alcohol in the spiritual community, etc. It's something that I'm actually asked a lot, and you might be asked this too. I don't do one-on-one coaching per se, but I do have like a kind of group of guys that I always answer their messages. I just won't not. I've been answering them for too long. I'm not going to like let them, I'm going to answer. I get the question a lot. And they'll think they want to know like my sobriety date. They want to know, how did you get sober? And they ask questions about like details about being sober or clean, waking up and drinking, waking up and this. Like I get those questions, and I have my own answers for them, of course. But, I'm curious. I know we touched on it a little bit, but what do you think about that in regards to not just the spiritual community, but because I'm one who believes too that addiction is. Yeah, it's a disease, but we can change. We can completely freaking morph. Just in the same way that you can hypnotize somebody to become allergic to peanuts and put a walnut or walnuts or whatever, and put a walnut in their hand and they will go into anaphylactic shock. It's possible. The mind is that powerful. Of course, it's possible to remove the phenomenon of craving. And you said it very well earlier that,
Sure.
people who don't know this, alcoholism is not drinking every day because you don't drink every day. Alcoholism is what happens to you when you drink.
Yeah.
And usually it means you can't stop. You don't have one drink. You cannot. It's fucking painful to you.
Right.
That's what alcoholism is.
So you're asking me what my perspective is on somebody that's trying to get away from alcoholism.
So yeah, I was going to say, what's your perspective and your experience? And, what would you tell people? Because I get this
Here's an example. Here's an example. When you go to AA, have you ever been to AA or NA?
Way too much.
Okay. When you go there, what do? They make you speak into existence I am an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. It's a spell. Okay.
And they will
So
also
when you
make
go
make
do
sure that
that,
you are a suffering alcoholic.
yes. Right. So
You're not
when
cured.
I mean, I give people I am affirmations. Why would I put anything that has to do with an old version
Why
that they
would
want
you
to let
put
go of?
alcoholic?
Why would I put anything that has to do with an old version of themselves, right? So, what we should be doing is not focusing so much on how to get them away from it, but introducing them to a higher frequency way of life by being genuine, by listening, by being compassionate, by having your own boundaries with alcoholics as well, because I've had to do this. Having your own boundaries where it's like, it's not that I don't love you, I'm here, and when you're, if you really want to be with me, or if you really want to be my friend, you can come be here with me in this when you raise your frequency, right? So all we're
Right.
doing, we have to be a mirror of how of frequency. Okay, so to me it's frequency. I'm not talking to somebody about their alcoholism and how to come off of it. I can suggest certain vitamins, things like that, but that doesn't matter, because the core of what alcoholism and drug addiction is has nothing to do with that. It's a deep,
No.
deep disconnection to self. So what we want to do is introduce higher frequency things to people, and gradually the light will pull them out of the darkness. You won't, but the light will. So you can introduce
Yes.
light, introduce light, introduce light, right? It's now they have an option. So we're giving people free will choice. You have this
Yes.
option, and now you've been introduced to these things. You can still be in this, but what if you dabbled a little in this? What if you dabbled a little in this and a little in this? And then before you know it, they like it so much that slowly their frequency starts to become more vibrationally fast. It raises the vibration of it, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
come out of it in their own process, right? But
Yes.
we have to stop telling people that they are an alcoholic, because we are reiterating their belief system. We have to remind them that they're powerful. You're powerful. You're courageous. You're
Oh, yeah.
loving, right? I don't care if you go and drink and act like a piece of shit. That's not who you truly are. That's who your
Right.
distorted
That's
ego
not
is.
who you
That's who
truly
your
are.
distorted ego is, right? So we just have to bring that awareness and not try to change them. Because when I was drinking, if you told me to stop drinking, I would rebel, because I'm a rebellious person,
Like
right?
I
I
would
would
look them
drink
in the eye
more.
and like chug
Right.
another drink
Yeah.
just to because they said
Right.
that.
Right. So we're not telling, anyone that has an addiction problem to stop doing it. That's not right, right? No, we're going to accept that this is their reality, have compassion for it, and introduce higher frequencies, but don't be attached to whether or not they want to change, because you can introduce them to a new world and they can choose. But it takes time. It takes time.
Yes. So that was a very valid point and a very well thought out answer. Very very well said. But I guess to state it plainly, the answer is, well, how? You have to introduce higher frequency to your life. You
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah,
That's
and most people don't have a good mirror. They don't have good support system. They don't, a lot of times people are alcoholics because they have a relationship with it, and it's like when you're codependent and you become codependent on an item, it doesn't matter what it is, it becomes your
same
friend.
thing.
It
Absolutely.
becomes your friend, and that's where I said I changed my relationship with it.
Yeah, absolutely. A good friend of mine, and he's shout out to Ryan Sprague. He's been on this podcast before, and he is doing big things. He does the Highly Optimized podcast, and this one time on psychedelics. Ryan, we love you. Um, he has set up a community where he is now, living in a legal cannabis state where his business is that of a cannabis coach. He does breathwork coaching and other things like that
Wow.
as
I
well.
love that.
He runs the Conscious Can. He's getting the free commercial right now. He runs the Conscious Cannabis Collective, is what it's called, and it's free, a newsletter, all that stuff, and it teaches people things about growing tips,
Hmm.
baking, just everything, anything, all cannabinoid, not super, super, super deep dive. But the
Mm.
main sauce is redefining the relationship with cannabis. People come to, and that's just cannabis in this sense, but people come to him to build a better, or maybe a different, with no expectations. Maybe that relationship's going to end. It's kind of like he's like, I guess, I don't know, you might disagree, but it's kind of like I see him like a relationship counselor for people with cannabis. Like they come there with when they're having a problem
Yeah,
with their
because
relationship with
cannabis
cannabis.
holds a frequency. It
Yes.
holds a frequency. You can choose to let it become your distraction. You can choose to let it plummet you into the heights. It's a medicine. It can become a poison if you let it distract you. So can, I mean, anything else. I mean, if you've ever seen My Strange Addiction, people are eating
Right.
drywall, right? They're
I
eating
was just thinking the
drywall.
drywall one. I was like, yeah, drywall.
So it's the same idea, right? But there are actual frequencies in things. And you guys as a whole, we created this universe as a team. We are one. Even the darkness is still
Right.
you.
They're still on the team. Yeah, it's still,
They have to play the
sorry, it's
role.
us.
Everyone's playing a role, and when we leave here, we laugh and go, "Oh my God, you did a really good job at that. That was wild,
Can
right?"
you imagine being up there with like your your nemesis once the amnesia wears off, and just
Well, and you find that your
having
nemesis
a
was your brother.
metaphorical cup of coffee.
Your nemesis was your brother the whole time, and see, I've seen that with roles and divine designs, and this is also what I work with people with is their divine design and seeing what they created for themselves at the time and here now, and recognizing the role, right? So, like my sister, and I just recently explained this to her, and she understands it. She always played the role of hell. Okay. She's been to hell, in hell her whole life, demons, demonic, all of that. I've tried to take her hell from her 10 years ago. She had this demon that I've seen before, and I tried to take it from her, and I was like, "Come, I will take you. I'll take you." Well, I can't because it was her creation. It was her creation because she chose to play the role of hell so we could see what hell was.
And
I
her
chose to play
intention
the
and
role.
belief in it must have been strong enough that, even you're
Well,
trying
it's
to intervene.
it's yeah, I mean it's a way higher perspective is what I'm talking about right now, right?
Yeah.
She's not conscious of that. She wasn't conscious that she
Right.
was creating hell, just like I wasn't conscious that I was going to have to be the first one to wake up in my family. But they
Exactly.
they all were waiting for me to, so that way they could lay down their roles. Okay? So
Mm-hmm.
when I woke up to my angelic frequency a month ago, I was shown Cassie, my sister, no longer has to be in bipolar, schizophrenia, alcoholism. It's done. Because the only reason why she was doing that by a higher level was for me and everyone else to have a reflection of hell. Now, when we woke up and evolved, she can take her armor off and lay it down because her role isn't needed anymore. No one
Yeah.
needs that anymore. So, out
And
of
that's
unconditional love, people choose to be the narcissist on a higher level. Out of unconditional love, they say, "Okay, I'm going to come down. I'm going to be your parent. I'm going to be a narcissist and I'm going to treat you like shit. This is going to be how you take our generation that we're being born into as a human. You're going to take that, learn from it, rebel, be courageous, find your truth, and you're going to be the one who wakes up
your
first."
rise. Yeah.
But everyone is an equal important part to the role. Everyone. And we all agreed.
Absolutely.
So if this is when I get to the point where it's like, okay, inflation, the crazy dark stuff that's happening in the world. It's contrast and it's there. It's so dark because the
Yeah.
pendulum has to swing equally to the other side,
I
right?
love that.
So we get to experience that. Like I
We
really
only
don't.
get this bright. We only get this dark. We only get,
Yeah.
that light. It's, yeah.
Yeah. So everyone's playing a role, and people will argue with me about it, and that's okay because it's meant to implant a code. But it's just that everyone's playing a role, whether you think it's right or wrong. We all agreed. Exactly. We all agreed. And people will say, "Well, I didn't choose to have somebody treat me like shit." I'm like, "Really?" Because when I was with my ex and I let him
Deeper
beat
than
my
that.
ass and break my face and choke me out and all the things that I let him do to me, it taught me where I needed to stand up for myself. So to me, I did create that because if it wasn't him, it would have been somebody else in the same frequency because I
Yeah.
needed it.
And one would argue that that's you. In another sense, that ex, that's not just your ex. That's you.
Oh, it's me, and it's
it's
a
a
soul
reflection
brother.
of yourself that you chose, and then developed amnesia and
Well, that I needed to see, right?
hopped into the
Like,
Carlie meat suit, and yes, you
yeah,
needed to see that in the mirror.
yeah. How would I know that I'm running a codependent program unless I'm with somebody that shows me true codependency
Highlights it.
on a very scary level, right? It had to
Yeah,
be loud enough for me to hear it. So that's
absolutely.
why we keep looping in it, because we haven't heard it yet.
And that's just thought of AA again. Made me think the one thing about AA that in the 12 steps and the whole recovery community that I think they definitely hit nail on the head right
Mhm,
is the whole philosophy of like, nobody can help us, meaning, alcoholics or addicts, but us. Like if
mhm,
you only another another one of us can help one of us. That's what they believe in that program. Of course, they also throw in that doctors are for different things, but as far as getting, for those of you who are not familiar with, I don't expect everybody to be an alcoholic or a drug addict.
mhm.
The 12 steps pretty much preach that the best and the only way to cure yourself, not cure, you go first. They'll tell you that you can't cure it. You're always that.
Mhm.
I don't believe that, but they preach that the only way. I'm sorry, what was it again? The only way to. Why am I having that brain fog on the
The
damn
12
12 steps?
steps.
Yeah, okay. The only thing that they have completely nailed on right was that the only person that can help another suffering addict or another suffering alcoholic or another blank verb, blank insert word here is
Mhm,
another one of that thing. So in this instance, alcoholics, people who are going through that spiritual awakening, maybe.
mhm,
But now let's go like a little higher perspective on that. The story that you just described, going through, and of course, I'm sorry that you've ever had to go through anything like that. But I'm also that's weird to say because I'm also very glad that you are who you are now.
mhm.
And without those things, you wouldn't be who you are now. You might be
Right.
somebody different. I don't know.
Mhm,
um, Going through those things, only in going through those things now can you can really help yourself and move on from that. And then take it another step further, that is what makes you uniquely qualified to help others. Now, not just to help others with alcoholism or spiritual awakenings, but
mhm,
just to see with a higher perspective and to reprogram the way that things are viewed subconsciously,
mhm,
semi-consciously, etc. All of that stuff is so fundamentally important to anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Your
right.
subconscious mindset, your framework, that sets everything up. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one thing they got right is, you need to have gone through it to help people go through it. That's the best way to do it, etc.
Yeah. The experience. You
And
have to have
that's
the experience.
that's you, Carlie. That's what,
Right.
and I'm not talking about alcoholism. I mean, maybe, but that's just the example that I'm using.
Yeah.
But
I
your
mean, it's all of it, you know.
experiences, the
I've
way,
I've been through it all, guys, you know. It's I've had DUIs, I've been in jail, I've been in mental hospitals at a young age. I was in the music industry. I did amazing things. I worked with professional musicians. There's a long, broad scale there. I've seen narcissistic abuse. I've been narcissistically abused physically and sexually and emotionally and mentally. Who hasn't gone through narcissistic abuse, right? So it's getting out of that. And because of that whole experience and all the stuff I just told you, I found self love. But I had to have the contrast. You know, I had to have my freedom taken away so I knew how good it was, right? In the present
hell
moment.
yeah. We're a shining example. And sometimes I gotta be honest, I see some folks and I'm like, why are they coaching people one on one? Why? Because
Mhm.
I might know that person and just it is the human in me judging, thinking, why would they coach someone one on one? What are they gonna coach them on? I would never ask that question about Carlie Wall. I would wonder why are more people want to work with Carlie Wall?
Mhm. Thank you.
Especially hearing your perspectives on it's the things that you've been through are one thing, but this
Mhm.
perspective at which you've looked at them and the takeaways that you've had, the connection of the dots that you've made is very unique. It's very sophisticated. It's very precise. But I
Thank
also
you.
have a a hint that that's not like on purpose. You're not trying to be Carlie. You're not trying to what does he have, like this deeper quantum understanding of angelic downloads and things like that.
Mhm.
That is, it is because it truly is, and you are that. You're not. It's not that you're trying to do that. Maybe you are. You're attracting it. You're getting into verbiage again, but you really do embody it in such a very unique and amazing way. And that's like
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what is your show about? That people
Yeah.
who are unique, who are magical, who are amazing, who are incredible, who have the trust, have the strength, have the conviction and the faith in self to know that is there's something that you're supposed to do for the collective or for yourself. Maybe it's for yourself, whatever. That's also for the collective. It can be both. It's but you have some mission, you have something that you're supposed to do, and the steadfastness and the 100% trust in doing so without any real expectation of, you know, one we both know in the podcasting, in the coaching world, you can't just expect to dive into that right away and just know, oh, it's all right because my dad owns the company, so I'll be fine.
Mhm.
It's not that way. I mean, it takes momentum, it takes time. It's a hard thing to do to get to a place where you're having a podcast, where you're coaching people, where you're facilitating groups and things like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
I just want to say you really should be doing that. I am so glad that. I mean, hey, it'd be great to see you making music again too. But you can do that at
Yeah,
the same
I'm
time.
so excited because my
I'm
music is truly it's a different frequency now, and I do have I know I've sent you my songs, that I have done, but it's just me and my guitar. But the music that I write now is with perspective, right? So I can write about anything, even the depths of hell, but there's always a perspective, or I'm channeling when I'm singing, and whatever comes through me is what I write. So I was going to say one last thing about this is that my perspective recently changed completely into a totally different dimension about the suffering when I recognized that it really truly was my initiation into the human experience. And I know that
wow,
because of my love for God and the truth, that if I truly want to be able to shift humanity, I have to know it at its core, right? I have to
yeah,
know it. And so
gotta
I
know it
tell
all.
people exactly. And we have all done this. So when we can see that we were just initiating into the human experience and that it doesn't define who we are, that's when you can take your power back and go, oh, I was initiated. I mean, it's like going into the military, right? You got to go to military school. You got to get conditioned. You got to all of these things. That's what happens as light workers. We can't just come down and think that these humans are going to listen to us. No,
Right.
we have to become them. We got to be in it. We got to go through hell. We have to and get out of it so that way we can bring them perspective, or no one's going to hear you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hell yeah. No, for sure. People know. People, of course, optics, all that stuff is important. But people, and we started with this. Authenticity is palpable. It really is. I think a lot of people have seen. I don't know, I'm forgetting the experiment and the way that they measured this, but they did find by study and clinical study and such, that the labeled feeling of authenticity is something I think it was like 400 or maybe even 4,000 times
Mm.
as strong as the feeling of love. Um, I'll try to find a link to that experiment so I can put in a damn video. But that was really something that was done, and to think that authenticity, is so much more powerful of a concept, of a feeling, and energy than love, which love's the answer.
Right.
It's true. I mean, we can't do a whole lot with just authenticity. We can do a lot together with love. We love each other. We love ourselves, and that's how things. That's the magic of life. That's the absolute beauty. Those moments of love with others, with hobbies, with art, whatever. But we need
Yeah.
to have that authenticity to get to that point of love. Without authenticity, we're not going to have love in our lives. And what
Yeah.
love means to me is just a completely different thing now than what I thought it used to mean. And I'm sure it is the same way for you too.
To me, love is the energy in motion, right? And it's the glue that connects all of this together. And the
Yeah.
authenticity is the light, because the light, authenticity, the energy of that is liberated freedom. Poof, freedom, right? Authentic freedom, light. But then love is the feeling of connecting the all of it together, right? It's an energy in motion. You feel it in your heart, and that's what brings connection and glues it together. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I'm seeing that even right now, is like, because I see what you're saying when you're like, it's different than authenticity, and I'm like, it really does, it is different, it feels different, because to me the inspired action of authenticity and life force energy isn't necessarily coming from love. it's
Right.
this it's this powerful light,
It's
and then the
more
love is
direct.
what moves it. The love
Hmm.
moves the light, right?
It's like
And it's kind
one's
of
the
like,
one's the
exactly it.
caboose, one's the whatever the one in the back's called, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this very interesting reflection there, Carlie.
Mhm.
It's a treasure as always to bounce these kind of ideas off of you. That's
And to
amazing.
me, they're just as equal, though. It's like two parts to the whole.
Yeah.
The light and the love. Like the love is the feminine energy that moves energy, and the light is the all that is light, consciousness. And
Of
together
course,
they can create worlds.
the, the quote unquote the masculine and the feminine energies
Right.
and such, which is that's another topic, which is
Hmm.
I mean we could explore that like for another 4 hours,
My God.
but
Sacred geometry, all of that.
that's another one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just reminded me a little bit, with the labels and such. And I remember, we had touched on this earlier, and a good way to kind of finish that thought for me is the labels and the stories, and reading into if you're a person going through a spiritual awakening right now, because I feel like a lot of people watching these kind of podcasts, a lot of my viewers are people who are, for lack of a better word, identifying with having some sort of spiritual awakening,
Hmm.
or they're going the other route of which is also can be the same thing. This is where I can learn, the real world route, the sovereign citizen movement. They're studying the Constitution. They're realizing what the suppressed technology. They're realizing that history is not what we thought it was. Things like that, and they're getting angry. And
Hmm.
I hope that they'll come to a higher understanding of things. But people come from all of those different places, and those labels and things.
Hmm.
I'm not diving into the divine and masculine, feminine on this one. I'm talking labels. But yeah, those labels are they're great fodder. They're great story. They're great ways to make connections. They're great ways to teach and connect and things like that. But ultimately, what I think, and the reason I try to shy away from labels as much as I do, and people ask, is obviously I'm in this community. I mean, I'm asked this kind of thing all the time. Like, oh, what's your star seed origin? And well, I mean, what's your sign is obvious, but like,
Hmm.
what's your star seed origin? Oh, yeah, of course, I've had past life regressions. Oh, well, what were you in past lives?
Hmm.
Um, what order are stuff? I've gotten to a place where I can't take those labels seriously, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you why. It's
Same.
because I see it as a form of divide and conquer. I see it as, like you said earlier, it's good up until the point to get thoughts going and people together, because I think all those people, whether it be from the flat Earth camp or the hollow Earth camp or the extraterrestrials under the sea, whatever the hell you believe in, but you're divided. it's it's all people coming from the same place. They're coming from a place of, oh, I've been lied to. I need to dig for
Mhm.
further truths,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. The
that's
energy
where
is the
things
same,
differ.
and that's, I know what you're getting at. It's the energy is the same. The labels and the story define that energy. They put it, so here's the energy. They put the labels on top of the energy, but
Put it in a
ultimately
box.
we have to evolve again. So you get identified, like I talked about earlier with the star seeds and light worker community. You start to get identified and immerse yourself in that, and then you're asked to evolve, and now you have to evolve outside of it again, right?
Yeah,
And so it's an awareness, and there's constant awareness. So if people believe that the starseed and lightworker community, is helping them, then it is because it helped all of us, right? It brought awareness. But when you're in that awareness, there comes a point when you have to evolve again. And
Yeah.
so when you come out of it, that's when there can't be labels, like you're saying. Like, we can't identify as something because we evolve so consistently that it doesn't even exist anymore, because it's just energy moving. And as far as past lives go, I know for a fact that we are not allowed to experience past lives in this life unless it serves our now moment. So
Right.
if you're shown something from the past, it's just to serve your present moment.
Yeah, and very well said, Carlie. And I asked that question because people ask, and I see them getting caught up on things like, yeah, I had a regression, and I was, name insert historical figure here. Oh my God. So the reason I keep changing my mic is because there's a really loud thunderstorm that just came out of
Oh,
nowhere,
okay.
and then
We'll
everybody
we'll
came
close it
inside.
up soon because I'll probably get rain too.
But I was just explaining for everybody, like the reason I keep doing that is because I got thunder, and I was just trying to, not
Mm-hmm.
have a thunderstorm happening at us. But anyway, yeah, sorry, it's a little distracting with the thunderstorm and the people coming indoors from the thunderstorm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those people come to me and they'll say, I had a regression, and I was told that I was Marcus Aurelius, or I was Julius Caesar, or I was Jesus Christ, or whatever. I mean, and those things may have very well been valid. And I
Mm-hmm.
certainly believe that whoever's saying this, I'm just saying examples right now. Like, I'm not speaking about anybody in particular. But those things may very well have been perceived by them. I believe that they believe that. But
Mm-hmm.
I like the way you said it. It wouldn't have been something that came up for any other reason than to serve you now, to serve you in
Mm-hmm.
the now, to become a better version of you, to get closer to your divine self, your oneness, your essence, your not the role that you were given, but the role that you chose. And going too deep into that is, it's like you're running past the finish line, and just
You
leaving the
start
parking
looping.
lot completely, you start losing your mind. I see people, unfortunately, and I can't stop it sometimes because I'm not like in control of people. Just people
Mm-hmm.
asking me questions, and I
Mm-hmm.
see them really get caught up in the stories, that can really, really happen. And it can be sad sometimes, people get caught up in that kind of thing. Numerological obsessions, obsessions with being a certain historical figure and having a certain purpose,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Would you agree? That's something that you would tell your clients
Oh
as well.
yeah.
Those
Oh
those
yeah. I
labels they have a purpose,
Mhm.
but they approach them with
So
caution.
I absolutely agree. I know somebody pretty well that swears that they are raw and all these things. So let me explain my experience of truth and why I have this perspective. Last January, I posted a video about being activated in the Christ. Okay. What happened was I fell down on the floor on my hands and knees, and my channel went to the Christ. So the Christ is an energy. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. The Christ is an energy. It is an energy of unconditional love that is so massive that you will sacrifice yourself because of that love. I was living the sacrifice of the Christed love, and I was screaming and pumping my fist into the ground like, this is the size. And I was screaming because I was living the sacrifice. And it was because the love was so intense that I was ready to sacrifice my own body, just explode because of the love. And that's when I realized that this is why we have so many different versions of what Christ is. And as we come into the Christ consciousness, it's a frequency channel, just like Ra. Okay, just like all these other beings, it's a channel of energy. And humans, animals, it doesn't matter. Anything in a lower form has a higher version. And when you're able to plug into certain channels, you're channeling the frequency of Ra. Ra holds a certain frequency of wisdom and oneness, and you are Ra because Ra is you. And so you can tune into Ra and be Ra. But when your ego believes that you're the only wrong, that's when it's ego. Because anybody that is open enough to open up their channel to reach that level of intense oneness can embody it. And I've embodied the Christ. Now, it activated me because I got to experience the sacrifice of unconditional love. Do I feel that way every day? No, because that energy is not sustainable as a human in this realm. I cannot be in the
Very good.
sacrifice of Christ's unconditional love at all times because somebody would probably whack my ass. I could go to a gas station and they'd be like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" It's not the reality here yet. But a lot of us have been activated into it because that is the frequency that we're tuning our reality into. And we have to know what it feels like as part of our initiation. But it doesn't mean that Carlie is the Christ. It means that Carlie knows how to tap into the Christ. And I've been blessed enough to know what it feels like to want to sacrifice my body because of how much love I have for all of you. I know what that feels like.
You're on fire today, Carlie. Yeah,
I know, right?
I love that. That rolls right into another one, the Christ consciousness topic. That's something that that was one of the big attachments I had, and I had to rid, and that's not something I've rid myself of. Intellect, logic, and reasoning.
Mhm.
I'm actually forgetting the third. I think there's three. Three named paths. They talk about like in like awakening or something. There's the ET path, the Christ consciousness path, and there's one other one, and I forget. It's like theory. It's not my theory. It's not law.
Sure.
But but that the whole Christ consciousness concept was, for me growing up is just kind of traditionally, at least kind of Christian. I mean, I wasn't like at church every Sunday or anything like that, but
Yeah.
just knew Christianity at least. That Christ consciousness concept and everything, when I really came into studying this kind of thing and seeing Jesus Christ, the figure known as Jesus Christ, the man known as Jesus of Nazareth, however you want to refer to him, it's her, he, they, whatever. It's the exemplar, and that was like a mega turning point for me. And it wasn't because I was super religious or anything like that. It just took me from that particular concept, opened me up from being, once I guess, a believer in a pie in the sky God, because that's what I was programmed and taught as a kid, to finally asking why, studying and using my intellect to decide, okay, well, there's no God. I've done the research and I'm smart and I've decided that there's no God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not the way I think now. I don't think in those terms, but what really was the change for me in that was being further exposed and further open and in further understanding the concept of the Christ ethos consciousness, and that Christ is an exemplar, not meant to be the way that we have traditionally spoken about man Jesus Christ in America.
Yeah, it can't be expressed in words because it's sacred. Sacred means that it has to be experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Can't be expressed in words. So that's how you know it's distorted, right? Because it was expressed in words. I can express my experience of living the Christ sacrifice as much as I can possibly say it and express it to you. But until you experience it, you can't hear me. Right?
Yeah,
People can't hear me.
right. You could tell everybody, you could tell someone 10 times, but it's not going to resonate with them until it's going to resonate with them.
Right. And then when it does, they know who to come to because I've experienced it. Right?
Exactly. Absolutely. And life experience is the most valuable teacher. I mean, you can it's not like going and getting an education isn't an experience. There's nothing wrong with it, but damn, there's a lot to be said for life experience, and it's a hell of a lot better teacher than, in my opinion, I mean, the classic example of the business professor who's never owned a business.
Yeah.
Call me crazy, but I'd rather learn from the really successful guy who's tried and failed 15 times, and now he knows freaking how to do business.
Mm-hmm.
Just for
Yeah.
example, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Life experience is the real teacher.
Mhm.
You actually were blessed enough with enough life experience to now be the age you're at and
Yeah.
have the goggles on to see that that life experience was worth something. You know,
Yeah.
I'm so happy to know you. I'm proud to be your friend, and I look
Thank
forward
you.
to continuing to collaborate with you because it's an amazing thing. You know, that's what we need. That's what is going to usher in the new earth. You know, they say, you know, babies being born these days are different DNA have chance to be activated, etc. And of course, then
Yeah.
there's us, who I guess would be their parents.
Hmm.
You know, we have a certain ethos about us, our generation, etc. We're a little more quote unquote awakened than if you had to put lump things into a bag like that. Anyway, I see hope for the new earth, and you know, I try to look at things that are examples for hope for the new earth that I want to see because I don't want to. I got to focus on what I really believe is the way. And this is all just to compliment you right now. I'm just saying you are absolutely a shining star, and I cannot wait to
Thank you.
see what you do going further, not just in the next year or two or five, but 10 to 20 to 40. You're going to do great things with what you've done with your life, what you had dealt to you, your life experience, how you handled it, how you've chosen to look at it, and now where you've landed with it, with everything perspective wise. And of course, we haven't covered everything, you know, we've skimmed the surface. But your
Yeah.
perspective on things is just so very uniquely
Mhm.
fitted. And obviously,
Thank
you
you.
packed in a lot of experience and a lot of, you know, well, they may have felt like trials and tribulations at the time, but now they're testimony, and it just makes you very qualified to be that voice, that, you know, and one of the people holding the staff. You know, we need leaders. You know, that's what we need, and people need somebody to go to that they can trust when, you know, they're having a crisis of the soul or a crisis of whatever it is. And I'm so glad that you're there and that you're doing it, and just honored to be a part of
Thank
it.
you.
Like you said, that's the whole. That's, I know it's crazy, but that's like how I. That's what I do in life for fun. I love seeing like my friends. Like, I love meeting amazing people. I love making friends with amazing people, and I love to see my friends succeed.
Yep.
And that's worked so far. That's really been my guiding philosophy, proceeding and for this podcast. And you know, it's not going to change. That's just how I am. So
Yeah.
it's always an honor, Carlie. I want to
Well,
ask
thank
you,
you.
and it's kind of funny because some of the questions I usually ask right at the end, you already answered, like what book would you recommend or whatever, things like that.
Yeah.
But I just want
The
to ask
law of
you
the let ask that the law of the way of mastery.
the way of mastery.
The Way of Mastery. It's a free audiobook on YouTube. It is a channeled book through the energy of the Christ, and
Okay.
it activated me 3 years ago into true love, and it was absolutely amazing and in resonance for anyone on any level of consciousness, especially if they're welcoming a spiritual awakening into their life or another one, just to feel seen and heard and known and feel that you are okay and you're protected and you're more than that, right? You're even more than that. You're a conscious creator. You create worlds. So definitely listen to
Totally.
that audiobook.
I will personally be checking it out because, you know,
Mm-hmm.
usually people say a book, I've read it.
Yeah.
It's a new one. So I got one
Yeah.
for later. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, where, just for you to say it in your own words, where can people find you? Where do you want people to come find you, Carlie? We're, of course, going to have all these links in
Uh-huh.
the bio and promo
Yeah.
all this and such, but
Mm-hmm.
where can people find you at?
My main platform that I work with is Instagram, Consciousness with Carlie, but I am on every platform. So Facebook, Carlie Wall, YouTube, TikTok is Consciousness with Carlie, but of course you can always just type in my name, Carlie Wall, and you'll see
Mhm.
me pop up everywhere on all those platforms. So, but Instagram's my main hub. I love Instagram. I love the way that we can talk to each other and communicate and comment and message each other. You just can't really do all of that on every platform in the way that we can with Instagram. So, for our community, it really is the best. way.
I really agree. I just
Mhm.
the way the app is, I mean, just let's get down to it. The way the app is, the functions, the
Yeah.
features, I guess the people it's introduced me to.
Hmm.
Instagram is also my main, way that I contact, and
Yeah.
it's the one that I use. The group chats, the abilities to do those kind of things. Like, yeah, it's a great place. It's a perfect example of transmutation because social media it gets a lot of bad press. It's something that's not good for modern humanity, but I'm using it as a different experience. And I remember you said something at the beginning which
Yep.
was on par with this. You weren't just going to like consume anymore. You were going to create. Like, I mean, people say that about social media when they say like maybe I want to start a side hustle and be an influencer or something, but take that beyond just social media and side hustles. Don't just
Yeah.
consume, create, be a part.
Yeah.
Those, if
Create. Yeah.
absolutely.
Be it.
I'm sure that's how it was for you when you started talking about the things that you started to talk about.
Mhm. Yeah. And it
Got to
evolved
start
over time.
somewhere.
It
Absolutely.
evolved over time. And as we evolve, I will constantly evolve, and so will everyone else. And I have people that are my clients now, and even just on my Instagram, that are like, wow, I've been watching you for years, and I have watched you just change and change and
It's
change. It's
it's
so
super
cool.
rewarding. It's
Yeah.
rewarding
Yeah.
to hear that kind of thing and to help people. So
Mhm.
that's awesome, Carlie.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
we're gonna work more together. I think.
Absolutely.
Unless you just are secretly gonna ghost me.
We have a lot
But
to do.
what I really wanted to do today, and I think you did a wonderful job of doing so, was just display
Thanks.
Carlie. Carlie's
Thank you.
personality, a little bit of Carlie's backstory. We're not going too crazy deep because we
Hmm.
could go as deep as one wanted. But
Yeah.
I think you did a wonderful job of just introducing yourself and who you are and sharing your energy and what you do, what you're about, and well, you just you did a very good job. Very good job
Well, thank
presenting
you.
yourself. If that's what you came here to do, bravo.
Thank you.
And
Thank
with
you for
that being
having me.
said, absolutely. And that being said, the things we have in common outside of that, just the 3D things that we've both kind of been through, I think it would be beneficial to others to have deeper conversations on some of these things. Maybe you know, a lot of people are coming out of Hollywood, and there's this whole anti-Hollywood movement now, where people still want to be artists but don't want to work in the old guard, addiction and spiritual awakenings and things like that. I feel like there's a lot of little
And they don't
subtopics,
have
but
to. They don't
certain
have to.
right.
This is the new earth.
So
You
there's
can
some
still do what you love to do, but let's do it in a new way. A new way. We can still do shows. We can still record. We can still make music, but it's ours now. It's not somebody
100%.
taking it from us. It's meant for the connection. That's why we make music.
It's ours. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Always a pleasure to chat with you. And
Thank you.
yes, big succeed, big win in displaying who Carlie is. Everybody out there, thank you so much for being here. Always appreciate you. Gaia, Unified, GFL. We love you guys. All of you know we have a bunch of events coming up with Portal to Ascension, so just check out the bios and our videos. We keep you pretty updated on that. And don't leave this video without clicking on Carlie's Instagram or something. Just giving her a little follow, a like, a vote of confidence. Got a
Yeah.
YouTube channel as
Reach
well. We'll
out to
tag
me.
that. Reach out.
Hmm.
If you resonated with her energy, I very, very, very much so encourage you reaching out to her. She's quite an incredible human. She's a very good coach. She gets very good feedback, and I'm not joking. There's like 10 hours more worth of amazing things I probably could have asked Carlie, but
Yeah.
we just had more than one interview. Fun
Okay.
fact: Carlie lives the RV life, which is freaking
Hmm.
awesome. Yes, I love that. I had to say it at the end because I don't know that we even said that, or maybe you said it once.
I did once. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I was like, darn, I ain't even talking about RVs the whole time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Carlie, you're beautiful. You are a
Thank
radiant
you.
being of light. And we'll be talking again soon. Thank you so
Okay.
much. I hope somebody
Thank
reaches
you
out to
so
you.
much.
And if you want, you can put this on your channel when it's all done
Yeah.
and ready. Everybody
Yeah.
have a freaking amazing day.
Okay.
Immersive out.